Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao, Mario El Azteca Barrios.
Make sure y'all stay on point with the Puncher's Point. What is good, y'all? Welcome back to the Puncher's Point. Now, this is going to be a very, very busy next 4 days because July 19th decided to hit us with 4 championship fights practically in one day. But I wanted to get the most important ones out of the way, and I feel like for at least July 19th, the most important fight is Manny Pacquiao making his return and basically trying to complete the impossible against 147-pound champion Mario Barrios. Now, I couldn't do this alone. Usually, when we get some big fights out here, I got to bring some guests. I got to bring somebody to kind of go word for word with me. And I'm going to say this right now. This is personal for me because for 4 years, me and this guy, we had all the boxing talks we could possibly have. And honestly, I can honestly say single-handedly, he's the guy that brought me back into boxing. There was a time where I just shied away from it. And overall, back in high school, he brought me back into it. He started listing some names, and I was like, let me go check them out. And then from there on out, I started following it a little bit more. And that's the reason why you got the Puncher's Point today. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to introduce a dear friend of mine, Anthony Cucinotta. Anthony, how we doing, man? Before we start this up, just tell everybody about yourself a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of got into boxing around 14 years old, 24 now, so it's been about 10 years that I've just been around the sport. And like Mario was saying, every day in high school, homeroom, every morning we'd have together and we would just debate boxing. We'd always be on the opposite ends of the debate for the most part, and we would debate and we'd get told to be quiet by the teacher a lot of times.
And we would cause havoc in that homeroom. I mean, I could solely remember our teacher just constantly telling us to be quiet, like Anthony said, but we would just keep on going on and on and on because both of us loved boxing. And at the end of the day, both of us had very strong opinions about that sport. And it just made for some great conversations. Y'all had to be in the homeroom to see all these conversations that we would have. Now, a lot of it I really don't want to be brought out because again, we were wild teens. We said some crazy things, especially me. I know I said some crazy things. But overall, we had some great times in that homeroom. I miss it as well. Obviously, when all 4 of these fights were made, I was like, I gotta get Anthony on at least one episode because I feel like there's very little people, especially now, that follow up with boxing. And I just knew Anthony was that type of guy that I wanted to have on this episode. So, regardless, Manny Pacquiao, Mario Barrios, 147-pound title. Now, again, I said it before, this is something that is basically it's not done a lot of times in boxing. I mean, very rarely do you hear about a world championship fighter who retired. He's been retired for about it seems like 4 years now. I feel like the Ugas fight was 4 years back, and now he's coming back in to fight Mario Barrios. And here's what I will say: if it was against one of those guys like a Brian Norman or a Jerron Boots Ennis, I'm saying he's got no chance because those guys are just dogs right now. They're going in there, they're killing everybody. If there's one champion that he has a shot at beating and becoming a champion again, it's Mario Barrios. And overall, we're going to talk about the strengths first with Manny Pacquiao. And this is where I'm going to pass it right back on to you, Anthony. If you basically list what you feel are the biggest strengths for Manny Pacquiao and overall, just go into detail as to how those strengths have gave him success throughout his whole career and how those strengths could potentially give him success in this fight to become champion again.
Definitely. I think immediately when you look at it, I agree with you that Barrios is the best choice for Team Pacquiao if they're going to get him back on top. He has no business being in the ring with any of those guys that you just mentioned, but Barrios definitely. And I think right off the bat, what jumps off is obviously the first and foremost his experience, right? So you can't really we talk about his age a lot, but you can't knock the fact that he's been in the ring with every single style and he knows how to deal with every single style. Whether you're a counter puncher, you're aggressive coming forward, he knows how to deal with it all. And so I think experience is going to play a big factor in this fight if Pacquiao is able to keep up with age. Um, Another thing that I think really makes him a difficult fighter to beat, especially in this late age, is his footwork and his unorthodox footwork. So Pacquiao throughout the years, you can see it. He gets caught a lot with both feet in the air. he does things that are very unorthodox that you wouldn't see a traditional boxer do, and you very rarely see that. And I think a lot of fighters have problems when they come up against Pacquiao because of that. So you can't really train for that. You can't get sparring partners for that. You don't really have fighters that do the things that he does, especially when he was younger and he had the foot speed and the hand speed that he had when he was younger. When you're talking about Miguel Cotto, Margarito fights, it's very rare to see that. And I think that a combination of his experience, his unorthodox footwork, and also one thing he always did very well was he split the jab. What I mean by that is you can see it very in detail with the Oscar De La Hoya fight. He would split the jab right down the middle. So a lot of times an opponent will come in, someone like Barrios too does this a lot, and they'll throw the jab and they won't take their head off the center line. What that allows Pacquiao to do, a naturally shorter opponent, is to just slip to his outside and just throw the left hand right down the pipe as soon as the jab comes in. Times it really well, takes away the jab, which is one of the keys that Barrios is going to need, is a really consistent jab. And if Pacquiao can take that away, along with using his unorthodox footwork and his experience, I think you could see a successful night for Pacquiao.
And I've gone on record saying in previous episodes and everything like that, especially like little Reddit episodes when there was nothing going on in the boxing world. One of the topics was who is the greatest offensive fighter of all time. We always talk about the greatest defensive fighter. Obviously, people mention Floyd Mayweather, Pernell Whitaker. Some people might mention like the current gen, might mention like Lomachenko back in his day. Shakur Stevenson is this generation's. But nobody ever talks about the greatest offensive fighter, and I've gone on record saying Manny Pacquiao is the greatest offensive fighter to ever live. And especially when he was young, I mean, throughout his whole career, somebody with his type of style, as wild as it is, it shouldn't have worked as good as it did. I mean, this man is an 8 division world champion. We're never going to see that again. Let's be real. Like, there's never going to be a guy who's going to climb 8 divisions, start at 106 pounds, and go all the way up to 147 pounds. And I think that, to me, is his biggest strength throughout his career was the relentlessness. How relentless he was going up against these fighters. These fighters would basically just keep getting pushed onto the back foot, and he went up against some dogs, some guys who just offensively were beasts in themselves. I mean, you talk about Eric Morales, Marco Antonio Barrera, you mentioned Miguel Cotto, Oscar De La Hoya was no slouch back in his day either. Juan Manuel Marquez was the guy, and I mean, it took 4 fights for him to even crack the code against Manny Pacquiao, and it took a perfectly timed punch to sleep Manny Pacquiao. But the truth is, to me, as relentless as he was, that's what worked. But being relentless does not work unless you have the gas tank. And it seemed like in his prime, Manny Pacquiao was just as relentless in round one as he was in round 12. It just did not stop. This guy would just constantly push guys into the back foot. And as wild as he was, because he was so fast, I feel like that also helped in itself. When Manny Pacquiao was in his prime, he was he had some of the fastest hands. He had some of the fastest feet. I also thought he was very good with cutting angles. I really thought he was I want to say he was the boxer at he was the first boxer I want to say technically at mastering it, but also including your offense into it. He was very, very good at just basically he would cut angles as he was throwing punches. Like it was insane. You now these days you see guys they'll throw a 2-3 punch combination and then they'll just cut an angle. He was doing it during punches. Like he would start by hitting you with like a nice 1-2 to the face, and then next thing you know, he's hitting you with a hook and he's on the side of you. He was just so great and so fast. But obviously now he's 46 years old. He's still got some speed to him. Power is the last thing that goes. He's still got that type of power. So you got to think about what strengths are going to work today. And for me, I will say is obviously he's got that power, but I had to go back and Ugas was 4 years ago. So even then, you don't know what he's going to look like. I had to go back to an exhibition match that he had against DKU, this guy. And when I looked at this DKU guy, he had relatively a similar build to Barrios, very tall guy, kind of skinny. He wasn't as skilled as Barrios. I will say that right now. Obviously, it's one of these Japanese boxers who go into the ring and they have these exhibition matches, and usually it doesn't pan out well. We've seen what one of their best could do against Floyd Mayweather, and it was not great. So when I went and looked at that exhibition match, I thought to myself when I was looking at the first 2, 3 rounds, I was like, God, man, he looks slow. He looks like he doesn't even like want to be there. He looks like he just lost a step. But it really went into the fourth round. Once the fourth round started in that exhibition, he really picked it up. And I don't know if it's because this other guy pissed him off and he decided, I'm going to turn back the hands of time 10 years back and kick this guy's ass real quick. But when he was in that ring, he looked dominant. He looked amazing. He would clip him with some hard shots. And it got me thinking maybe Manny's still got something left in him to just win one world title and call it a career. That's what I would like to see. So for me, I still think that power is still there. I think he's very good with disguising his punches. For me, the biggest punch for him would probably be the left hand. I always thought the left hand was something that was always working well for Manny Pacquiao. And he still has that fast pace. I still think he's relatively accurate. I still think he can potentially cut angles against the right opponent. I do think Mario Barrios is potentially the right opponent for him to cut angles and make it work. So I do think he's got a shot in this fight. But overall, I can't deny the fact that this is 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao. He's not what he was when he was 36, 26. He's not what he might not even be the same fighter that he was against Barrios. Excuse me, Ugas. So he might not be even the same fighter as he was against Ugas. So for me, those are the questions going to be answered in this fight. But overall, to kind of just simplify and basically wrap it up, still got the power. He's got great feints. He's still relentless as ever. And in my opinion, I still think this is going to be a very difficult opponent for Mario Barrios. Now, obviously, when we talk about the strengths, we got to talk about the weaknesses. I already mentioned how he's almost pushing 50. I've already mentioned how he might not be the same fighter, but overall, as far as weaknesses that he had during his career, because let's not knock it. He did have 8 losses. Some of those losses ended by knockout. Some of those losses he lost to some very technical fighters. So let me pass that back on to you, Anthony. What were some of the weaknesses during even the prime of his career that you saw that made him a liability when it came to fighting some of these great fighters like a Floyd Mayweather or like somebody like a Timothy Bradley and even Jeff Horn? What were some of the weaknesses during those times?
To kind of piggyback off that too is you look at the footwork and we always acknowledge it as a good strength for Pacquiao, but at the same time, the reason that it's unorthodox made it a strength, but it also makes it his weakness. So if you're able to time that, as we saw with Marquez particularly, but also Floyd was able to, and even Timothy Bradley had some success. If you're able to time Pacquiao as he's coming in, because he does have a tendency to jump in, and when he jumps in, he'll get caught with both of his feet in the air. He'll get caught off balance. That makes any shot that you run into 10 times harder, more dangerous. And now you take the age, for example, which we know is already going to be a factor, but you take his unorthodox style of footwork that might not have the same speed as it did during his prime, still flawed, not the most technically sound. You could run into something, especially from a sharp puncher like Barrios, who's compact. He's got pretty good timing. You don't want to run into anything like that. I don't know if Barrios has the power to put Pacquiao out like Marquez did, but you don't need a lot of power if someone's going to run right into it. So I think that's something to really watch out for. One other thing I think to watch out for too is it's kind of more of a mental edge. So Pacquiao coming up, we talk about his relentlessness. We talk about Morales, Barrera, Cotto, all those guys. That's a Pacquiao that had something to prove. That's a Pacquiao that was a full-time boxer. That was his career. He was chasing world titles. He was chasing divisions. Now you're looking at a guy who's been out of the ring for 4 years. He's made all the money that he can make. What is the reason to get in there, right? So you might still love the sport, but you need to be able to have an answer for that question when things get tough, because things are going to get tough. Barrios is going to lay it on you. He's going to show you his age. He's going to show you his youth. What is your answer for when things get hard in there? Do you still have the same answer, or will you cower away and kind of just play it safe and try to get to the decision? I don't think he will because he's Pacquiao, but you never know what that 4 years did for him. He's got a family. He wants to see his kids do well. He wants to live a good life with his wife. I don't think he wants to get hurt. I mean, I think that's more in the forefront of his mind at this age and at this stage of his career than it was, you know, 10, 12 years ago.
Basically took almost every weakness off my book, but I'm glad you mentioned what's the reason, what's the purpose. Because let's not act like a year ago, basically, let's not act like he wanted to participate in the Olympics and go fight 18-year-olds because he said the Olympic gold medal was a dream of his. And yes, I get it. Everybody has dreams. Obviously, amateur boxers, the number one thing you want to do is go win that gold medal because I've always said in the Olympics for boxing is a lot more crucial than it is for basketball or for some of these other sports like track and field where it's basically your pros. The Olympics in boxing, if you can get a bronze, you're guaranteed a contract at top rank, basically. If you can get the silver, you're guaranteed something at day zone. If you can get that gold, you're an instant star. So I understand it, but at the same time, when I had my co-host on the show, Breezy, he said sometimes God has bigger plans than the goals that you had. And I'm sorry, but if you told Manny Pacquiao, here's your gold medal, but you're not an eighth division champion, I don't think he takes that. I think that eighth division champion status is a lot higher than winning a gold medal at the Olympics. But regardless, I'm glad that you mentioned the purpose. And the reason why I say that is because maybe all the purpose he needs is to win this world championship. But he was also in that ring with Ugas, and Ugas was the title holder, and he lost to Ugas. The thing that everybody keeps on forgetting is not only is he coming back after 4 years, what this training camp is like when they announced this fight, it was like 2, 3 months ago. It's gonna take a lot more than 8 weeks to prepare for any type of world champion. I mean, even Barrios, it's gonna take a lot more than 8 weeks when you haven't been in the ring in 4 years. I mean, when you go back and you look at George Foreman when he made his comeback, he was going little by little. He was fighting these pro boxers who were pros, but they weren't really anything special, and he was working his way up. And then you saw him fight Evander Holyfield, and I mean, he tried his best. He had some moments, but Holyfield ended up beating him because Holyfield was more active. Holyfield was was he kind of dealt with that era, so I feel like that also had a big factor in him winning that fight. Now again, this is Manny Pacquiao and Mario Barrios. Mario Barrios is no Evander Holyfield, so it could be a little bit different. But at the same time, 8 weeks is not enough. So I feel like that in itself is a weakness in itself. The time limit in which they're trying to push this. Now I will say, when he did this exhibition, his trainer was not Freddie Roach, and I'm hoping that Freddie Roach might be the key for him winning one more world title because Freddie Roach recently it seemed like Freddie Roach was MIA for a long time, and then all of a sudden we see him pop back again in the Jaime Munguia fight when he was going to fight Canelo Alvarez. Then we start seeing him kind of start teaching Devin Haney a few things. They bring Haney over to his gym and he's teaching him. It seems like we're starting to see Freddie Roach get a little bit more active into training. And if there's one guy I feel like that could get Manny Pacquiao back into the groove, it's Freddie Roach. So I will say that for me, you mentioned all the weaknesses, but the one weakness that I think that I had to mention was just the time limit in which this fight's going to happen. And I feel like, is it too much to ask for Manny Pacquiao to get ready for a world championship fight in 8 weeks? And that's the question that's going to have to be answered, basically, because if he can't get ready in 8 weeks, it's going to be a big problem. And I honestly could see it being a sweep for Mario Barrios if Manny Pacquiao is not on his P's and Q's. Now, for all we know, Manny Pacquiao could have been training this whole time. You know, maybe or he was already somewhat in fight shape. Maybe he knew about this like months back, and they finally made it official. So maybe he's already been getting ready for this. But I'm just hoping he's ready. But overall, you touched up on every weakness that I had when it came to him. He walks into deadly punches, obviously, and not even just the Marquez fight. Go back to like the early times when he was in the Philippines. He got knocked out brutally twice. So everybody doesn't recognize that. Everybody forgets about that. They just think of Marquez. And I'm not gonna lie, me, I had to go back and look at it. I just thought about Marquez was the one to knock him out, and that was it. But you go back to the Philippines, he was having those same exact problems. The only thing I will say is you can push him back as well. Like the first Eric Morales fight, Eric Morales really started pushing him back, and then when Manny Pacquiao suffered that cut on his eye, it seemed like Manny Pacquiao started playing it a little more cautiously because the doctors kept checking on in it. I'm pretty sure he didn't want the fight stopped. So, like you said, with the mental edge in that fight, it was the cut. I might not want to engage as much with Eric Morales because he keeps on clipping me in that eye. They're gonna stop this fight. So it's the same exact thing, just as obviously no injury. It's the same exact thing. Mentally, are you able to go in there and make it your fight against Mario Barrios? So that's what I will say. Let's talk about the strengths for Mario Barrios. I'm gonna pass it on to you. Give me some of Mario Barrios' best strengths that could potentially have him defeating Manny Pacquiao.
He does have a very sharp jab. It's just how he can establish it. So he's got a sharp jab. He's got very good timing with short shots, which is going to be key. And then most obviously his activity in his youth is going to favor him in this fight. But it's the way he utilizes it. So he can't just go in there, try to establish his jab, give no feints, no eye feints, no foot feints, no double jabs, and just try to establish a straight jab. He's going to get picked apart all night. He's got to be very, very meticulous on how he uses his jab, how he's defensively responsible with his jab. He's got to get his head off the line. He's got to be very active when it comes to feints. You can establish that jab and you can keep Pacquiao on the outside. That's going to be beneficial for you. And I think if you can establish that jab and really take a good couple of rounds to download the information, what Pacquiao is going to bring to the table. Like I said, he's never seen anyone like Pacquiao. It's going to take him a little bit of time to really understand how Pacquiao moves and how he can time him. If he can get him into the second half of the fight and he can time him coming in, not saying he'll stop him, not saying he'll knock him out, but he might make Pacquiao just hesitant enough to where he can pot shot him for the rest of the night, have some good rounds in the second half of the fight, and eke out a decision.
For me, the strengths I had, I also had that jab. I said it's a sticky jab that Mario Barrios has. I do think he's very good with it. And I think that was one of the biggest tools when he was fighting Tank, because not to mention before that eighth round, he was defeating Tank in the cards. So I do feel like that jab is definitely one of his biggest tools. I really do like that right straight of his, especially when he was on his run. When he was on that run in his career, that right straight was always seemed to find home against these opponents. And he would throw it in different ways as well. Like he would sometimes throw it in a distance. It would be like a one punch straight and the guy would go down. There would be other times where he would kind of use feints, which is another strength of his, in my opinion. He would use these feints to set up that right straight. He's got a good check left hook. I will say that. I do think that check left hook is definitely another tool that Mario Barrios does use correctly. And he doesn't use it as like a knockout punch, but he'll use that check left hook to kind of stop guys who are relentless, like a Manny Pacquiao, or guys that are really good with pressure. And he uses that check left hook very, very well. Again, great body puncher. I will say that right now. To me, I mean, that's the one area, if you're going to fight Mario Barrios, you have to be careful. You can't just be like, oh, I'm going to the inside and piece this guy up. Because that body shot, I'm telling you, he's very, very sneaky with it. So I feel like that's the one area where they got to be very, very careful. And last but not least, ring control, or range control, I should say. He's very good with establishing his range. As lengthy as he is, I mean, he is a very tall opponent. He's very good with that range control. And he's good on the inside, but besides those body shots, I really don't feel like he has a game on the inside. I feel like he really does like the outside. That's where a lot of his power punches, a lot of his bread and butter is on the outside. So I will say he's good with controlling range. Now, as far as the weaknesses, we already mentioned the keys to victory for Manny Pacquiao, but as far as the weaknesses, how is Mario Barrios a liability in this fight, and how can he potentially lose his 147-pound title?
At first, starting with the jab, I've mentioned it a couple of times. He tends to keep his head right on the line. Every time he jabs, they're going to catch up on that, and they're going to catch your timing very quickly, and they'll quickly take your jab away. And you don't want that in this fight. You need to establish that jab. I think one of his other weaknesses is his variability in attack. He lacks. If you watch his fights now, he'll feint every now and then. He'll throw some variable shots, but in this fight, it needs to be a step beyond. He's got to take his feints. He's got to take everything to a new level because he cannot be predictable in there. Because like we've said, Pacquiao has seen it all. He's been with all styles, and he can't just be throwing straight shots, sharp shots, yes, but straight predictable shots because he's going to get countered. And Pacquiao still has pop. Like we said, his power is the last thing to go. Pacquiao still got some pop. So if Pacquiao catches him with those counters, it's going to be a long night for him. So I just think he needs to be a little bit more variable in his attack. I think he needs to change up his jab a lot more. I think mentally he needs to be prepared for that. And he's not a lot of times in what I see to fight this level of opponent. If you're fighting a Pacquiao, that needs to be doubled, quadrupled, whatever it may be. All those skills that you can get away with not using against lesser opposition, they have to be there at this night. I don't know if Barrios has that level in him. We're going to find out. But as of right now, the level that I have seen him at in his previous fights, I don't think so.
I do feel like there's times where he could be, like you said, one dimensional. There's times where he can, it's just a straight shot, or it's just a straight jab. I do feel like that is definitely a weakness for him. For me, he tends to open that high guard up. And I mean, for the shots that he gets punched with, again, Tank knocked him down 3 times. You talk about Abel Ramos. I mean, he's got clipped. He's got clipped badly. So, and that's all because he just seems to open his guard. Now, whether that's his opponent forcing him to open his guard, whether they're basically using feints and disguises, that's again another weakness that he has is those feints and disguises. Whether that's what's making him open up his guard, that's one thing. But at the same time, that high guard's always open. The second thing is the hooks. I feel like a lot of those times when he's getting knocked down, it's through a hook. So I feel like that's the punch that usually drops him. Again, any punch can drop the guy, but for me, I will say the hook is the one that drops him maybe the most out of what we've seen so far since he's been knocked down and all the times that he's been knocked down. I feel like that hook has been the punch. And last but not least, there's times where he just takes too much damage. You talk about a lot of these fights that he's had. You talk about the Abel Ramos fight. He took way too much damage in that fight. than he was supposed to. It was a great fight. It was exciting. I know. I mean, that Jake Paul, Mike Tyson card, a lot of true boxing fans know that card was going to be terrible. That fight was going to be horrible. But if we're talking about the best fights on that card, they talked about Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. And if you showed up earlier than that, we're talking about Mario Barrios and Abel Ramos, and it was a great fight. But at the same time, where was the defense? It was just him and Abel Ramos trading. I mean, early in the fight, it seemed like he was doing decent. Then he got clipped. He got knocked down. All of a sudden, this turns into a firework fight. But fundamentally, it was off. They just kept brawling. And I feel like there's times where he takes too much damage. Abel Ramos, Keith Thurman. You look at the Keith Thurman fight, huge cut in his eye. I mean, if we're gonna be honest, he just takes too much damage, and especially if he takes that type of damage, he gets a cut in his eye against somebody like a Manny Pacquiao. He tries to brawl with somebody like a Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao sees blood, he's gonna go after you. It's like a shark. It's like a shark seeing blood infested water. It's gonna be game over. So I would like to see him take less damage in this fight. Now, before we get into the predictions and everything like that, I do want to mention the betting odds. So, Mario Barrios is the favorite in this fight at minus 280, while Manny Pacquiao is the underdog at plus 210. Now, the most likely method to victory is going to be Mario Barrios by, actually, get this, most likely method to victory, Mario Barrios TKO or KO. The least likely method to victory besides a draw is going to be Manny Pacquiao by KO, and then the other least likely method to victory that's kind of slimly above that is Manny Pacquiao by points of decision. So with that being said, Anthony, before we get to the prediction, I do want to ask you if you can give me maybe like two keys to victory for Manny Pacquiao. If Manny Pacquiao does this, he will win this fight. What would that be?
So you talk about his combination punching. That's obviously going to slow down with age and with experience. You're going to know when to throw them, when not to throw them. But I think to make up for the leap in age, I think he's going to have to definitely a lot of combinations this fight, keep Mario Barrios off balance. Like I said, he's going to have to split the jab because Barrios has a pretty sharp jab. But Barrios does tend to keep his head on the center line when he jabs, and he doesn't mix it up as much as he needs to when it comes to a fighter like this. So, he's going to have to use his footwork, even though it might still be a little slower. He's going to have to show Barrios that he is different than anyone Barrios has faced, regardless if he's an outdated Manny Pacquiao. This version of Manny Pacquiao, the style is like no one Barrios has faced. So you're gonna have to make Barrios confused in there. I think he can do it. I think he sticks to his combinations, sticks to his footwork, uses his experience to not get caught, and he splits that jab, takes that jab right away from him. I think you're looking at I think you're looking at a path to victory for Pacquiao if he's able to do all those things.
I think for me, the three keys to victory for Manny Pacquiao would probably be basically push Mario Barrios in the back foot. I will say that would be the first thing. Keep Mario Barrios pushed back. Make sure that relentless pressure is still there. The second thing I will say is, for me, try to land that straight. Especially try to do it with the left as well. Try to land that straight because I do feel like Mario Barrios, I feel like his guard isn't the most durable. So when you can land that straight on Mario Barrios, I feel like that is a great opportunity to drop him. You can get around right there, kind of like what he did with Keith Thurman. I feel like if you can just drop him with that left straight, that would be great as well. And then last but not least, control the fight, make it a fast-paced fight, and overall, just I will say this: be careful because I'm not saying be cautious, but just be careful. Don't go in there and don't try to brawl with him on the inside because Mario Barrios does got some power punches to him. He is a good body puncher at that. I've seen him knock out a decent amount of opponents with body shots. So I will say just be careful when you're in that ring. Don't risk too much. Those would be the three keys to victory for Manny Pacquiao. Now, with that being said, three keys to victory, or give me a couple keys to victory you would have for Mario Barrios retaining his belt.
Definitely. I think very early he has to establish a very educated jab. You can't just go in there and throw a jab. You have to be very educated about it. And I think you have to bank on the fact that if you're going to win this fight, you're going to have the majority of success in the second half, right? So, like I said, you're going to have to get his timing down. You're going to have to see how he jumps in. You're going to have to see his foot feints. You're going to have to see his speed, if he's still got it. You're going to have to invest a little bit, and you're going to have to lose some rounds early on if you want to be able to time him coming in and catch him with those sharp counters towards the end of the night or towards the second half of the fight. I think another key to victory, also more along the mental aspect of it, is I think you're going to need to be ready to have rounds where you get blown out. Pacquiao is a blistering combination puncher. Yes, he's probably going to catch you with a sharp shot and he's going to unload a 15-20 punch combination on you. You have to be very, very solid and stick to your game plan. Like, yeah, this is happening right now, but the second half of the fight is mine. I can't get into a firefight with him, even though you want to. Can't get into a firefight with him. You have to stay very, very focused on your game plan because Pacquiao is going to have rounds that make you feel embarrassed, honestly. He's going to throw a bunch of punches. The crowd's going to be going wild. Everybody loves Pacquiao. The crowd's going to be on his side. You're going to want to get it back right away. And that's a mistake against a veteran fighter like Pacquiao. So if he can establish a very educated jab, be patient, and he can bank on the second half of the fight, I think that's his clear pathway to victory.
For me, I would say try to focus whenever you choose to do it, try to focus on learn Pacquiao in. I know he's experienced. I know he's been through so many different styles. I know he's a very, very smart, articulate fighter. But try to lure him in. The one thing about Manny Pacquiao is he's a very reactive fighter. If you go and you land a 3-4 punch combination on him, he's gonna want to come and get that back. So I will say, try to lure him in. Try to frustrate him early. Basically, don't show your cards early. Like you said, I agree with that 1000%. Don't show your cards early. But at least try to frustrate him early a little bit. At least try something. See what works. See, well, I hit him with this 2-3 punch combination, and he kind of acted a little wild. He kind of came at me, like, in a fast way. Don't throw nothing yet, but just basically lure him in a little bit. Kind of like what Marquez did with him. Kind of like what they used to do with him in the Philippines. Floyd Mayweather, again, he would hit you with those little 1-2 punches, especially in that fight. He hit him with the 1-2 punches, and he would basically keep on counterpunching him. And then it took that one little flurry, like you mentioned, when Floyd Mayweather was on the ropes and Pacquiao threw that 10-15 punch combination. Again, that wasn't a highlight for Floyd Mayweather, but Floyd Mayweather realized, okay, that was his moment. Now it's time to go back and keep on counter-piecing him. So for me, lure him in. That straight is, if you can time it perfectly, Pacquiao's going down. I'm sorry. If you can time that straight perfectly, you will drop him. I just feel like you need to time it perfectly, and that's the challenge right there. Timing perfectly on Manny Pacquiao is not easy. But if you got a chance to do it, the chance to do it is now when he's 46 years old, and not when he was 26 and he could move out of the way in a split second. So I will say, when you lure him in, try going for that straight. Obviously, again, you have a good check left hook, and that would be my third key. Basically, when he tries to come in, when he tries to make it an aggressive fight, use that check left hook, not to knock him out, just to get out the way, just to basically give yourself room to get out of harm's way. So for me, those would be the 3 keys to victory for Mario Barrios. So with that being said, see you by knockout, unanimous decision, anything like that. What you got?
I think I'm gonna go with Pacquiao just because I love Pacquiao. He's my guy growing up, but I think I'm gonna go with Pacquiao by split decision. I think there's gonna be moments in the fight where you're gonna see the disconnect, where you're gonna see, all the Pacquiao of old would have definitely clipped him here or wouldn't have got caught with that shot, which will allow Barrios to have some success. But I think I'm gonna go with Pacquiao by split decision.
I think I'm gonna go Pacquiao by majority. I think we're gonna have that one judge that goes draw. But I'm kind of on the same line as you, and I might be saying this too because I do want to see Manny Pacquiao take this victory, and it is part of. And again, our generation, 2000, we grew up with Manny Pacquiao. So I would love to see him get another win. I feel like Mario Barrios is. If he can't get a win against Mario Barrios, he needs to hang it up. You're not going to be a championship fighter ever again unless somehow like somebody like a Bell Ramos beats him in a rematch. Before we wrap this up, Anthony, it's time for you to close it out, man. Anything that you want to talk about, basically anything that you want to, if you want to wrap this up, anything you want to promote, any social medias, anything like that, let's hear it. Any gyms, whatever. I'm down for it.
Yeah, I always have to give a shout out to the original gym that I went into, Big Six Boxing. It's on Douglas Ave in North Providence. You're going to get the best fighters that go in there. You got the best trainers that go in there. So whether you're an aspiring fighter or you're just someone who's trying to get in shape, trying to learn the sport, definitely take a ride in there. Jason Estrada, his father, Roland Estrada, they won't do you wrong. So definitely check that out.
Anthony, I appreciate you being on the podcast. And with that being said, it's time for us to wrap it up. Manny Pacquiao versus Mario Barrios. July 19th in Las Vegas, Nevada. Can Manny Pacquiao complete the impossible and become champion once again? Or has Manny Pacquiao's time ran out and will Mario Barrios retain his title? All those questions are going to be answered again July 19th, MGM Grand Arena, Las Vegas, Nevada. Make sure y'all definitely go check that out. And make sure y'all definitely go check out all the other episodes. We got Usyk versus Dubois, and that's where Anthony will be returning for that episode as well. So make sure y'all definitely check out that episode. And with that being said, follow the social media platforms. Make sure y'all subscribe to the YouTube and the podcast. And last but not least, make sure y'all stay on point with the Puncher's Point.